Hey folks, Tom Norfleet with www.citizenshipquickly.com. If you have a question or comment, if you put it in the comment section below, I'll get any questions I can to you. Also, if you want to see new videos as they come out, just hit the screen to your right and you'll get new videos as they come out automatically where it says subscription. I wanted to talk to you today about a three-part series that we're having on relinquishing or renouncing U.S. citizenship. Most people that relinquish or renounce their citizenship are usually citizens from the USA, and they usually do this for tax reasons. So most of the section will be dealing with U.S. citizens, but some of this information will be dealing with other high tax countries as well. If you're from other high tax countries that tax worldwide income based on residency and not citizenship, such as countries like Australia, Ireland, United Kingdom, Germany, Sweden, Norway, Finland, New Zealand, Greece, Italy, Slovenia, Israel, France, China, Iceland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Austria, Denmark, Japan, Portugal. What you'll see is there'll be a separate section for you on this topic. The act of relinquishing citizenship, if you're a U.S. citizen, is done outside the USA at a U.S. consulate or U.S. embassy. Sometimes the reason for relinquishing, whether it be a U.S. citizen doing this or a citizen from another country, is a foreigner might want to get the same citizenship of his spouse, and that new country where he's trying to get citizenship from doesn't allow the dual citizenship. So the old citizenship is given up by the foreigner in order to get the new citizenship. Some also might want to get citizenship in the foreign country he is currently working because he might be barred from certain business opportunities in that country because he's not a citizen of that country. And in order to get the new citizenship, he might have to relinquish his former citizenship because a lot of countries don't allow dual citizenship. So, he would have to give up the old one instead. Have you heard the old saying, the only thing that is for sure is death and taxes? Well, the death part is correct, but not the tax part. I can assure you that. You definitely can avoid all personal income taxes, corporate taxes, stamp duties, capital gains taxes, inheritance taxes, estate taxes, and property taxes. Even sales taxes and VAT can be avoided by either renting or buying in a country that has no stamp duties or property taxes. If these countries want your business, they need to roll out the red carpet, folks. I mean, there's too many draconian taxes going on right now, and this is not the way to get investors to do business in a country. First of all, if you're a U.S. citizen and you want to avoid taxes, you can either take it in baby steps or do it slowly, or you can go very fast and relinquish and get out quickly. Either way, if you're a U.S. citizen, you need to get outside the USA, and I advise you to get a second passport for insurance purposes, even if you never give up your U.S. citizenship. A lot of people can eliminate their taxes totally by filing what's called the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion form, which is the 2555 form, and leaving also the USA, but don't cut corners on this form. You have to be outside the USA and its overseas territories in other foreign countries at least 330 days of a qualifying year. If you come back to the USA and you cheat on this, it will show on your stamping on your passport when you came back and when you left the USA. So, I wouldn't be cheating on this. You want to be up front and be outside for that length of time. If you're not, then don't file that 2555 form. Getting a second, ultimately, in order to legally avoid all the taxes mentioned, you're going to need to relinquish your U.S. citizenship and get a second passport and get all your assets outside the USA and its overseas territories. And you need to get outside the USA also, but you can make that decision if you want to, if you want to move that far in doing so. Getting a second passport is a bridge that needs to be taken place for insurance purposes. And then if you decide later to get out of your U.S. citizenship, then you have the second passport to fall back on. Also, if the crap hits the fan and you need to get out quickly, that second passport can not only save your life, but also your finances as well. Rule of caution, don't wait until a civil or criminal problem surfaces before you start to get your second passport. I know 3 personal cases of people that not only applied for a second passport but got it, and then pre-existing problems surfaced after being granted their second passport, which was never mentioned on their citizenship application form, and their citizenships were revoked. I don't know if one country that offers these fast-track citizenship programs that has not had at least one person's citizenship revoked because of lying on the citizenship application form. Of the revocations that I know of personally and read about, which are very few in number, most were done right after or very soon after the passports were granted. And 100% of these people lied on their citizenship applications and had problems when they applied for the citizenship. And these problems were never mentioned when applying for the citizenship. If revocation does occur, more than likely you're going to lose all government and legal fees you have already paid, for the passport itself. This is why I say when you're getting the second passport or when you get the passport, any problem that materializes that you see on the horizon, you need to mention it in the citizenship process. If you don't do it, you're going to have problems down the road. If you escape them, fine, but you're taking a big chance by doing it. I've also seen people get second passport where a big problem happened after they got the second passport, and there was no proof that the person had or even knew about the problem when he applied for the citizenship. And they were protected from the country, going after the person. But you need to, that's why you need to do this stuff ahead of time before there's a problem that comes up, or if you think there's an issue that's on the rise and coming forwards. There are civil and criminal problems that I have seen from many countries that, if brought out on the citizenship applications, will not even be a civil case, much rather a criminal case in the second passport country. And this is why you need to be totally open and honest when filing out these citizenship forms. Because if the government comes back later and says, we found out about this, this, and this, you can say, well, that was mentioned on the application. Here it was mentioned, but you guys still approved it. Okay? So this is why you want to be open on this. Our company has never had a client turned down for citizenship because we do an actual preliminary due diligence test before you start to pay the government fees, and this can save you a lot of money. Countries like China, Russia, Syria, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and many other countries have what I call abusive laws, especially dealing with freedom of speech, matters that you can go to prison on for years or even die from these acts, which second passport countries don't consider as being a crime at all. If you have a female, for instance, in your apartment in the country of the UAE, Dubai is part of the UAE, and the two of you are alone, and she's not a relative, and there's no marriage contract between the two of you, both of you can go to prison whether you've had sex or not. And this is one of the reasons I tell people, if you can't deal with that, don't go to the UAE, which Dubai is a part of. If you speak negatively against the royal family of Dubai or the government of Dubai, you can go to prison. If a citizen of Russia tries to run for public office in Russia or are openly critical against Putin, you all of a sudden will have to go to jail for some trumped up crime which you didn't or much worse, you might disappear. So these are cases and problems that might happen in certain countries that other countries won't even view as a civil or criminal matter. That's why we have to look at every piece of information to see and bring it forwards, and then if it's spelled out in the citizenship process, then you have no problems. Just because you have a problem doesn't mean you can't get the passport. If you're a billionaire in Saudi Arabia and all of a sudden the country needs more money for arms, and the way to get this revenue fast would be to kidnap other billionaires and hold them in a Ritz-Carlton in Saudi Arabia for months, which, by the way, happened with no explanation except the government said you were involved in money laundering with no proof, and all your assets are frozen until you pay, with some of these people disappearing because of non-compliance. Would you say this is a crime? Well, most countries would not view that as a crime. The above is a crime in Saudi Arabia, only because the dictator says so, and since he is the dictator, he doesn't need any sort of proof to show for it. I lived in the UAE for 4 years, and when all the problems occurred there between Qatar and the UAE, a newspaper came out with the headlines basically saying anyone criticizing the actions the UAE has taken against Qatar will be met with swift action of a fine of 500,000 dirhams. That's over 100,000 US. In fact, to be exact, it's about 138,000 US dollars and 15 years in prison. Is this a crime? Well, it is in the UAE. When revocations do occur, they are almost always done very soon after the passports are granted, and not years later, and are extremely rare. Getting a second passport will take about 3 to 4 months to complete if you do so in the Caribbean. If you're a U.S. citizen and you invest abroad or you move abroad and don't give up your current citizenship, your tax and compliance paperwork will usually increase, unless you just simply retire. But you'll still be under the tentacles of the IRS. You can totally eliminate all tax paperwork if you relinquish your U.S. citizenship and move not only yourself but all your assets outside the USA. And then you can get your taxes to zero, but you would have to have a second passport to do this because the U.S. government will not allow your relinquishment to take place unless there's another citizenship in place to replace the current one that you got now. If you did not do the things I've mentioned previously, you would be stateless, which means you have no way to travel and no protection that citizenship would provide. So you have to have that second passport in place before you relinquish your other one. You'll have to fill out a questionnaire from the U.S. Department of State of Consular Affairs, and this is entitled Information for Possible Loss of U.S. Citizenship. This form will ask what country you have your second passport in, as if it is any of their business. And if you want to keep that private but still not lie, you can state a country in the Caribbean, if it's a country in the Caribbean, because in this case, if the country is in the Caribbean or in Europe, you can put in, if it's in Europe, for instance, you can put a country in Europe. But by doing it this way, you're not lying, but if you don't do this, you're not going to get anything done on the application. Remember, the IRS has control on this application. If they do not like your answer, they can reject it and your relinquishment. The IRS is getting more and more nosier on this form. By the time you get this form, you're probably going to have a lot of additional things that are on there that I don't even bring up here. That form changes a lot. You also have to have filed your last 5 years of tax returns before relinquishment, or the relinquishment will not be completed. If you got a question or comment, just put it below and I'll see what I can do to help you. Also, if you'll hit the subscription button to the right of the screen, you'll get all the new videos as they come out. Stay tuned for our other two-part series on relinquishment or renouncing, and I'll look forward to hearing from you then. Thanks.